Welcome, my name is Garrett Billings. I'll be guiding you through the process of collecting rare and endemic plants using ESRI's Art Collector. This process streamlines data entry into the system. It's easy for collecting field data. It reduces data entry. We found it to be a great tool to use out in the field. So the first step to using ArcGIS is obtaining a username and password. If you're part of the Forest Service or BLM, these agencies will already provide you with a username and password. Just forward this username to Mindy Wheeler and she'll be sure to invite you into the appropriate groups to get you started. If you need a username or password, just let Mindy know as well and we can get you started with one. Once you have your username and password, just go ahead and log on to ArcGIS Online using that URL. Once you're online, you'll need to accept the group invitation, so we'll just walk you through that process. This is what the home screen looks like. This is sort of the state web page, so it could look a little bit different, but for the most part, it'll be the same. So you see up at the top that icon that says groups. You'll go ahead and select that icon. Okay, and then you'll see invitations, select invitations, and then you'll see DNR partners, and then just join this group. And now you'll have access to the feature layer to start collecting data with. Okay, so your next step is to create your first map. So you select the map function. Here you see the nice instructional guide. You'll need to select the appropriate layer. So to do this, just go to My Content. Then underneath that, you'll see My Groups. Select My Groups. Now you'll see two feature layers, one being land ownership. This is an optional layer. Very useful though out in the field to know whose land you're walking on. And then the second layer will be the rare plants layer. This is the required layer for you to collect data. This is the most important layer for you to check mark off. So just go ahead and click those two addition signs and that puts those layers into the map. Okay, now you'll need to select a base map. So there you go, you see the land ownership pop up. Now select base map. The base map that you choose is up to you, personal preference. Just do not choose the AGRC base map. These freeze up, they don't work offline for whatever reason. But other than that, use whatever base map you so choose. We prefer to use the imagery with aerials. Okay, go ahead and save the file. Name it something relevant to your project. You will be required to add a tag, so just something simple like rare plants. And then save that file. And as soon as you hit save, that map is now ready for you to upload on your mobile device. Okay, so let's talk a second about the mobile devices. So it doesn't matter what device you use as long as it's GPS activated. Android or Apple works just fine. They are slightly different just with user interface, but essentially the same. If you're using an Android, you just download the app using Google Play. If you're using Apple, just download it using the iTunes Store. You'll find it just under the, if you just type in Collector or ESRI's Collector, you'll find it under Art Collector. Go ahead and download that and then log in using the same credentials you logged on using online. And then as soon as you log in, you'll see that map appear under All Maps. For offline you'll want to download the map. So it's as simple as clicking download. You'll be prompted on choosing your work area. The screen looks similar to this, so it'll have you select that work area. It's important to narrow down the work area to the specific project you'll be working in. That way you can select a finer detail. So that brings us to the next process, which is selecting the map detail. You want as good as resolution as you can while working out in the field while not making the app crash. If you go over 400, it usually will not download, so usually just try to keep it under 400 MB. If you have a really good Wi-Fi or a really good device, I'm sure you could go a little bit higher than that, but as a rule of thumb, 400 usually seems to work pretty well. If you go over, the app will prompt you and tell you to reduce the level of detail, but usually you want to keep it well below this level actually. So after you've selected that level, you'll just hit OK, and then you can actually start collecting data. So let's just talk first about the fields. So there's the date field. You just hit current date, and then survey methods, which we'll talk about in a minute. Surveyor, use your full name. The next, survey affiliation, you will want to be specific and try to be consistent with how you're filling this in. If you're the BLM Vernal, just make sure everybody is entering in BLM Vernal. This helps when you're filtering data on the back end. Okay, and then you've got your target fields. You can include up to 6 of these. It is important if you're taking absent data that you enter in zeros for both reproductive and non-reproductive, or else it will not show up as an absent point, it'll just be blank. So once again, you can have up to 6 targets. Once you're finished entering your targets, you can enter in your associated species. You can have up to 4 of these. So be choosy, choose plants that really represent the vegetation community. Okay. So you've got the associated genus only filled. This is useful if you're dealing with a plant that you're not sure the species name, but you know the genus. You've got 2 options for that. You can, on the back end, take photos of it or leave in the notes some descriptions of the plant if you want to come back to that. You've got the weeds fields, which include weed density. The list just comes from the Utah Noxious Weeds list. And then you've got a threats field that you can indicate any threats with. And then you can put notes, just anything interesting that you might notice about the point or anything. And then the next thing, you can include photos. You can include as many photos as you want. So you just click that attachment button, you snap a quick picture, you hit OK. You can retry if you take a bad picture, and you can include as many pictures as you so desire in a single point. Okay, so now let's go back and revisit the survey methods. So you'll be prompted on filling out a number of different survey types. So you've got the first one, which is the UNHP method. This is our method for capturing absent and positive points. Essentially, this is just walking intervals of 250 meters, taking absent points. As soon as you run into a target species, you stop and take a point there, and you continue taking points until you have covered that area of the target species. So normally, one point constitutes as a 30-meter diameter area, but if you've got a target species that is in such abundance that it's difficult to count in a 30-meter area, you can just take as many points as you can within that area to capture the individual count. And that's essentially the UNHP method. So just walking 250-meter intervals, taking absent points, and then your points consist of a 30-meter diameter area. Okay, so the next thing that you see up there is a clearance survey. This is used for collecting data for endangered species reports. This is essentially just covering the entire specific project area. You can do this in a number of different ways, but we just suggest walking those transects, taking a point every 30 meters, and then covering that 30 diameter buffer area. You can reduce that size or increase it as you see fit. Just include that in the notes. Intuitive is essentially just before you got into the field, maybe you are looking at aerial imagery and you see a nice spot that you want to go check out, and then you go to that one specific area. That would consist of an intuitive point. Opportunistic would be if you're driving down the side of the road, head into another survey site, and you happen to see a good hillside with a specific soil type that plant might grow in. You decide to hop out of the car and take a point. Field check is if you're trying to check on maybe an old occurrence record that you found or something. You go to that point and you just check on the population. Monitoring is kind of open-ended. Just be detailed in your note explanation on how you collected that data. And then any other survey types that you might think of, just include in the notes. So here's just another example of that clearance. So you can see you just be walking the transects and then covering that whole area. Then let's just go back and look at a diagram of the UNHP method. So you can say we just started out taking a point with a 30-meter diameter buffer area. Then you walk 250 meters. You're not seeing any plants. You stop, take another absent point. You continue for another 250 meters, take another absent point. Oh, but then wait, you ran into a target species, so you're going to take a point there, and you're going to continue to take a point until you've accurately represented that distribution of the species. Okay, so now we're going to go to some other tools. You do have the ability to turn off layers. So if you get tired of looking at all the land management polygons, you can toggle that off. You just select that three-dot icon in the lower right-hand side. You'll see layers pop up, and then you can just toggle those on and off. You've got other tools. There's an extremely useful tool called the copy point. Essentially, this just allows you to copy the previous point that you made. You just select the point, you select copy, and then you choose how that point is copied. So normally for this process, you will really only be selecting the like this one at a separate location. This will move that point to the location that you're at. It will prompt you to the fields. You can change any fields that might be different. If everything's the same, you can leave it be. You can see here, usually you'll really only be changing the count if you're taking target species. But this is really useful if you're working in an area where the vegetation is pretty consistently the same. That way you don't have to keep entering the same associated species. So you can see here all the fields carried over. Okay, the next useful tool here is the measurement tool. So this allows you to measure the distance or area out in the field. So you essentially just select that three-dot icon in the lower right-hand side, same as the layers, and then hit measure. You'll have the option to choose distance or area. You can choose distance, and then at the top part of it, you can select the units that you'll be working with. This is really useful when you're walking those 250-meter transects. You'll see here, just as an example, we'll go ahead and select that layer real quick. So measure, and then you'll go to distance. That button right there actually just starts that right at your location. And then you move that. You can choose your units. So we'll go to meters. Then you can go out about 250 meters, and that will track your measurement, your distance in real time. Okay, so after you're done collecting the points, you're back in Wi-Fi. You can do it over cellular data. If you have too many points, it just takes a really long time, so we recommend doing this over Wi-Fi. But essentially, just on that same home screen, you'll see a sync button. There'll be a number next to it. That'll be the number of points that you're uploading, and you just essentially click on sync, and it'll automatically start syncing your data, and they'll all go right to ArcGIS Online. So after you're done with the map, you can remove it. This cuts down on confusion out in the field, so you can just select that icon in the bottom right-hand side, click Manage, and then select Remove, and that just removes the map from your phone. It does not delete the map from the ArcGIS Online. So lastly, let's just talk about you've collected all your data out in the field, you've gone home, you're ready to look at it. So you go straight to ArcGIS Online, you're going to hit your content. Then you're going to find the layer that you were collecting within groups. You're going to select that. Okay, you're going to see this home page. There's two ways to edit your data. You can look at it on the table view. This, you'll just select the data, and it'll automatically bring you to the table. You'll see your points right there. To edit, you just simply click on it a few times, and then it's just editable. You can go ahead and start typing in, make some changes. We'll change it to the BLM West Desert for an example for how to filter data. So to look at the map data, you just hit visualization. So this is an example for filtering. So to filter, you go to visualization, then you'll hit that little icon. It's kind of yellow off to the left. Select that, and then you'll be prompted to select the criteria that you'll be filtering. You can do this on survey date, your affiliation if you're just trying to bring out your group's points. So select survey. So we'll select survey affiliation. Since we just changed that to BLM West Desert, we'll type that in. You'll see there it filters just that point. So you can save that layer, save it as BLM West Desert, save that, and then now you can view just that data. So you can see here, we'll go to data. You'll see just that one point show up. This is really useful in the back end when you're just trying to see certain points. Maybe you just want to see a week that you were out in the field. So here, there's a second way to edit data. You can go ahead and select that map viewer. And then in the map viewer, if you want to edit any points, you just select the point. It'll pop up a little box with the data, and then you just hit edit. And then now all the fields become editable. And on that note, you can edit any of the data that you want. And this is how you actually will delete the data. You cannot delete the data in the table viewer, but you'll see here in a second, once we scroll down, you'll see a delete button. You can click the delete, and that will delete the point for you. And essentially that is the editing process. To export the data, you just go to that feature layer, you click overview, and then you'll see a button that says export data. It'll prompt you to choose the format that you want it exported in. Select whatever way you want it exported. This could be Excel, CSV, a shapefile. Once again, enter in that tag, and then export. And then that will open up that file, and then you can click download, and it will open you right up into Excel, and then there you can see all your fields. So here's just some additional information for editing. Nothing new, just some step-by-steps. Okay, and that is essentially the process of working with Collector, collecting rare plant data. If you have any further questions, just contact Mindy or myself. Here are our email addresses, and I thank you very much for your time.